Hi everyone, and welcome to our session today on how to stop worrying about what other people think of you. For those of you guys who are tuning into one of my webinars for the first time, welcome. I'm Chloe from 3C's Philosophy, and my dream is to give you guys the tools and techniques to build yourself a happier, healthier, and more positive life, which fits quite nicely in with our topic today. So, everyone wants to be liked and accepted. But many of us spend too much time and energy worrying about what other people think. And the scariest part of it is you might not even realize you're doing it, but these kind of thoughts are really unhealthy and quite stressful because at the end of the day, it makes us feel unworthy. I remember I always worried what people thought of me. I'd have a conversation with someone, and then after the conversation, possibly even hours later, I'd still be thinking, oh, why did I say that? I wonder what they think of me now. I should have said this. And I just got to the point where it was all happening multiple times a day. And because of it, I lost all of my confidence and self-esteem. And I ended up getting depression. What I realized was the reason I had low self-esteem was because I was constantly judging myself and knocking myself, when actually what I thought I'd done wrong didn't really matter and no one else really cared. So I want to share with you the approach that I applied in my life because I know it works. It's a proven way to eliminate worry of other people's thoughts from your mind, allowing you to feel happier, healthier, and more positive about you. So my aim for the session is to give you guys the tools to increase your self-esteem and self-confidence, and also to realize that your opinion is the only opinion that really matters. Now let's look at our learning objectives. So by the end of this session, you'll be able to be confident in yourself. You'll have a better understanding of who you are, what's important to you in life, and what you truly value. You'll be able to challenge your mindset and challenge your self-image. I want you guys to be able to analyze how you judge yourself and how that affects your worries of others. I want you to be able to experiment with your thoughts and whether they're true or not. So you'll be turning the light on your worries and establishing that by turning the light on, you can actually handle the worst case scenario. And finally, you'll be able to change your focus. You'll learn how to channel your energy on you, your achievements, your strength, and by stepping out of your comfort zone so that you can impress yourself and be proud of who you are. This webinar is designed for those of you that want something to change and you're ready to make a difference in your lives. If you find yourself at any part just thinking, yeah, but, then stop. I want you to pause it because it may mean that you're not ready to do something yet and make a difference and make that change. This webinar is for those of you that believe you have the strength to make the change, believe you have the power to make the change, and believe that you are committed to making the change. Okay, so if you believe that that's you, let's get started with a bit of sharp realization. The truth. No one really cares. Believe it or not, we're not that special. We go through days thinking about how other people might be judging us, but the truth of the matter is, people are thinking the same thing. No one in today's world actually has time to think about anyone else but themselves. The fact of the matter is, we're too busy thinking about ourselves and our own shortcomings to be thinking about other people. I wanted to just give you guys a bit of an awareness of a study that was done by the National Science Foundation that claims, on average, people have 50,000 plus thoughts a day. So let's imagine that you feel like a person thinks about you 10 times in one day. Now that's 10 thoughts out of 50,000 thoughts. So thinking about you takes up 0.02% of their daily thoughts. Now, I don't know about you, but that doesn't sound like much to me. So I want you to think about a situation now. I've always enjoyed watching performers trying to busk in the busy train stations, the busy high streets, and I absolutely love the fact that they just don't care. So what I want you to do is imagine the last time you saw someone busking in the middle of a busy high street, busy train station. Visualize it. And I want you guys to ask yourselves two questions. Firstly, what do they have that I don't? And I want you to write down a couple of things that you feel like answers that question. Second question, why do they have the ability to not care what people think, but I don't? And just write one sentence to answer the question. Okay, so now what we do is put that to one side, and we're going to revisit that a little bit later on. And that's the bit of truth out of the way. So let's get on to why you're watching this webinar today in the first place. How to stop worrying about what others think. So the first step, know your values. Are you one of those people that finds themselves saying yes to everything because they're worried about maybe what people might think if they don't? Or perhaps you find yourself putting the well-being of others before your own well-being because you're worried about maybe letting them down? Well, then this is a really important step for you. Why? Well, firstly, you need to know what's important to you in life, what you truly value, and really what you're ultimately aiming for. Because once you know who you really are and what matters to you, you soon realize that what other people think of you really becomes insignificant. When you know your values, you know you have something to stand up for and you know what you believe in. You'll stop saying yes to everything else, and instead, you'll learn to say no when people put pressure on you to do something that you don't really want to do. So that's exactly what we're going to do now. So I'm going to talk you through a quick and short exercise just to discover your values. So I want you to make a note of 5 things you feel are your values. So things that you feel really passionately about that are ingrained in the whole part of your life. So it might be happiness, it might be commitment, it might be integrity, it might be enjoyment. Whatever it might be, just make a note of them and come up with roughly 5. Now, if you're struggling with this part, perhaps you've never actually had to think about what your values are. We actually have another webinar that we do that really goes through the detail on values, and it will lead you through a proven method to establish your core values. So please do check that out if you're struggling at this point. The important thing about your values is that when you know what your values are, it may shed some light as to why you care so much about what other people think. Perhaps you're very empathic and you're worrying about the impact of what you do on others. Or one of your values may be happiness, and therefore the happiness of others may be really important to you, even more important to you than your own happiness. So, next step, stop judging yourself. Do you find that you judge yourself on a regular basis? Do you feel like everyone else must be judging you as much as you're judging you right now? Well, if you don't want others to judge you, you need to turn down the volume of your inner critic. You need to stop yourselves judging you. Because sometimes we hit ourselves over the head over and over and over again with judgments to the point that we begin to question our own abilities and decision making. By judging ourselves, it makes us feel like others must be judging us, because why wouldn't they? In order to stop judging ourselves, it's all about challenging our mindset. And the good news is, we do have the power to change the way we think. So, let's say you're waiting to meet a friend and you're sat on a bench in a park. And whilst you're sat on that bench, you see a man walk past and he stands in dog poo. He swears, he shouts, "Stupid dog, just trying to ruin my day." And he storms past you on his way back home to change his shoes. Now, whilst you're sat there, you see another man do exactly the same thing, walking down the street, and he stands in dog poo. Now this time, this man starts to cry. Why me? Why do I deserve to stand in dog poo? 100 people could walk down this street and I'm the only one to stand in dog poo. And again, he walks past you, this time wiping his tears on his way home to change his shoes. And finally, whilst you're sat there, it happens again. Another man walks down the street and stands in dog poo. He's shocked. Oh crap, now I've got to go home and change my shoes. Well, At least I've got time to go home, I guess. It could be worse. So, what does this exercise show you? Now, that's 3 men going through the exact same situation, but yet they act completely differently, all because of their mindset. One of them takes it as really negative and finds it angry and feels like it's all about them, and actually someone has gone out of their way to make them feel the pain. Another man takes it really negatively and makes him feel upset and feels sorry for himself. And the final guy just thinks, oh, well, these things happen. So this shows us that many times when we feel an intense emotion, like sadness, anger, worry, whilst we don't realize it in the moment, often it's due to our mindset. And if we challenge that mindset, we can challenge the thoughts and change the emotion. So we're going to do an exercise now, and I like to call it Be the Witness. So let's put yourself back on that bench in the park. Let's imagine you've just seen the first man walk past and stand in the dog poo. Now, while you're sat there, I want you to think about his reaction, what he said, and I want you to answer the following questions. So we'll answer them as we go. What was his feeling or emotion? So the first guy seemed pretty angry, so I'd say he was showing a lot of anger. Second question, what was his thought? Well, he said, stupid dog, just trying to ruin my day. Third question, what triggered his thought? So what happened just before he got the thought? He stepped in dog poo. And finally, the most important question of this whole exercise, is his thought factual? Is it true? Is it based on real evidence? So now let's look at each part separately in order to answer that question. Stupid dog was the first thing he said. Now, that's not very factual at all, because the dog wasn't being stupid. The dog was just going to the toilet in the same way he knows best. The second part was just trying to ruin my day. Now, do you think the dog or the owner was trying to ruin his day? No, probably not. The dog definitely wouldn't have thought about it. The owner may have thought about it, and it probably wasn't a good idea to leave the dog poo there, but even so, the owner wouldn't have thought specifically about that one man and specifically wanting to ruin his day. Although that is the way the man perceives it, that is the way he's creating that identity with the issue. So what this shows us is that whilst the feeling and emotion of anger was so real with that man, it was created on wrong, untrue information, which created a negative mindset and made him feel like it was a personal attack on him, which it probably wasn't. So what I'd like you to do now is do the same, but this time for the second man, and answer the same questions. And then we'll move on to the next step. So you've answered the questions, so let's go through it. So question number 1, what was his feeling or emotion? I'd say sadness, disappointment, perhaps. Number 2, what was his thought? Well, he said, why me? Why do I deserve to stand in dog poo? 100 people could walk down the street and I'm the only one that stands in dog poo. What triggered his thought? What happened just before he got the thought? He stepped in dog poo. And fourth, most important question of all, is his thought factual? Why me? Why do I deserve to stand in dog poo? Well, what evidence does he have that he deserves to stand in dog poo? He doesn't. He's assuming that he deserves to stand in dog poo, but it's not factual. What evidence does he have that 100 people walk down that street? He's not. He's overgeneralizing and he's exaggerating. And when he says, and I'm the only one to stand in dog poo, well, we know he's not the only one because we've just watched another man stand in the dog poo before and another man afterwards. So once again, whilst his feeling of emotion of sadness was so real and painful, it was again created on wrong and untrue information, which made him feel sorry for himself, feel like he was disadvantaged. This is a simple example, but you can apply these same questions to any situation for yourself. So if you feel like you're feeling a particular emotion, you find that you're judging yourself, be the witness. Step out of the conversation that you're having with yourself and apply the same principle that you did when you watched the guys standing in the dog poo. Now, that's a lot easier said than done. And so the best way I found to do this was by starting a thoughts diary. So have it on you at all times, and at any time when you feel an intense emotion, fill in your diary and really spend time answering the questions as soon as you can. So, what was my feeling? What was my thought? Be as detailed and literal as possible, as if you were going to explain it to a complete stranger, someone that wasn't in your head. What triggered my thought? What happened just before I got the thought? Now that is usually the hardest thing to distinguish, because when you're writing in your thought diary, you're still really in the moment and actually trying to step back and think about what actually happened to get you angry. You still have a lot of emotion attached to it. Is it factual? Ask yourself if it's true. And really, in there, be strict with yourself. Be really analytical. Imagine that you're the FBI and you're trying to dice up that situation to really prove as to whether it was true or not. Okay. So, guys, I'd recommend that you start that thoughts diary and start that as soon as possible, because I promise you, the minute you start writing down your thoughts and your feelings and challenging them, you will start realizing that it was the mindset you're in. Because what you might then do is hours later, when you're feeling better, you may look back over it and you'll be thinking, well, actually, what was my thought? It's all about me. And then you'll look at your facts and think, actually, it wasn't all about me. It was X, Y, Z. And so it's really good to stop, take stock, write it down, because it will help you. Okay, next step. Imagine the worst that could happen. Now, this is something that people used to tell me all the time when I was worrying. And it was a really difficult thing to do, because depending on how imaginative you are, you could really come up with some crazy situations. So what we're going to be doing is turning the light on when the monster's in the bedroom, because actually, often when we turn the light on and start to really understand what's going on, we realize it's not as scary as we thought, because actually sometimes our imagination is worse than the real thing. So, for example, if I was worrying about the impression that I made on a person, let's say I was trying to make friends with them, I may be worrying about what they thought of me, what I said, whether they liked me. Let's ask ourselves, what's the worst thing that could happen? They don't like me? They don't make friends with me? Let's actually take this further. They may even tell people not to be friends with me. So, how do I feel? Well, firstly, if they went to that much effort to not be my friend, do I really want to still be friends with them? And secondly, there are 7.4 billion people in this world. That means by worrying about one person not being friends with me, I'm worrying about a lot less than 0% of the population. So I have way over 99% more chances to make other friends. So, how do you feel about it now? What I'd like us to do is an exercise. What I want you guys to do, don't worry about writing it down. I just want you guys to imagine that you're 90 years old. And I want you to imagine that you're blissfully happy. You're healthy, you're sitting in your rocking chair, and you're looking back over your perfect life. What can you see? Are you looking out of a window? Are you watching TV? Are you listening to any nice, relaxing music? Are you listening to your family bickering? What can you smell? Can you smell the nice smell of a roast dinner ready to be served up? Are you happy? Are you smiling? Are you comfy sat in the rocking chair? And whilst you're sat in that rocking chair, surrounded by the nice smells, the happy sounds that you can imagine, I'd like you to ask yourself the following questions. Who am I as a person? Am I caring? Am I inspiring? Am I creative? What have I achieved? What am I proud of? Did I start a family with lovely children? Did I achieve my dream job? Did I make a difference to someone? Now spend a minute thinking about your answers to those questions. Now that you've done that, I want you to think about the one person you were worrying about before when we started this exercise. So for me, it was worrying about one person that wanted to be my friend. How did that one person affect my rocking chair thoughts? Did it have any impact at all? Did I still have a happy and healthy life despite that person's thoughts? And what this shows us is that even if the worst thing that could possibly happen happens, so my situation, they didn't want to be my friend, they told everyone else not to be my friend, I still had a happy and healthy life. I still had kids. I still had my dream job because that one person had minimal effect on my life. It may even have made me a stronger person. Okay? And finally, create a growth list. So once we've stopped judging ourselves, we've managed to challenge our thoughts, we've changed our mindset, what we need to do now is stop worrying about what other people think of us and focus on what we think of us. And the best way to do that is by creating a growth list. Now, for those of you that maybe haven't come across a growth list before, it's a list comprised of all the things in life that make you feel uncomfortable. Doesn't sound very nice. So these might be fears, they might be insecurities, anything that turns your stomach a little bit and you think, please don't make me do it. So here's how it works. You start by writing all the things down that make you feel uncomfortable. And then one by one, you start doing them. But ensure you assign a reward next to each one so that when you tick it off, you get your reward, you feel great because you've made yourself feel proud and you can enjoy your reward. Once you've done the first one, you move on to the next. Now, the reason this is so powerful is because each time you tick something off your list, you're impressing yourself, you're growing yourself, and you're improving your self-esteem and self-worth. This means you spend more time thinking about how well you're doing and how great you are than worrying about what other people think. So, what I'd like to do as our final exercise is I want you guys to write down 3 things right now that you know make you feel uncomfortable. And don't pick the easy ones because you know you need to do them. Pick the top 3 things that make you feel uncomfortable. That you know if you could do, you'd be impressed with yourself by doing them. You might be going on a holiday on your own, going as a solo traveler. It could be forcing yourself to speak at a public speaking event, maybe not as the main speaker, but ask a question in a room full of people. It might be something really extreme, like bungee jumping or skydiving. Whatever it is, write 3 of them down. Now, surprise, surprise, this is your growth list. And this is your next priority in terms of your personal development because you're going to learn to love and appreciate yourself. So, pick one and set yourself a goal to complete it. Be specific and make it time bound, because you're going to give it a time and a date and you're going to make it happen. Exciting stuff. So that brings us to the end of our steps. And now I'd like to ask you to think back to that busker on the street. I know you wrote it down, what you thought at the beginning. So I want you to look over your piece of paper and I want you guys to read your questions, maybe even ask yourself the same questions again. Look at your answers to the first question. What do they have that I don't? Do you still agree with that answer? Why do they have the ability to not care what people think, but I don't? And now my question to you is, do you still think you don't have the ability to not care what people think? And final thought for you to take away for when you get there, when you get to the point where you feel yourself not caring about what other people think, and you will get there. 2 pieces of advice that I would give you. Firstly, put yourself out there. Enjoy being you. Wear what you want to wear. If you want to wear crazy shoes or a crazy jumper, do it. Be who you want to be. Act how you want to act. Stop worrying and actually just enjoy being you. The more you do it, the better you'll get at it, and the more it will just become natural to you. And secondly, surround yourself with the pros. Surround yourself with other people like that. Surround yourself with people who are self-assured, who are confident with themselves, who actually live their life without really caring about what other people think. And they live their life focusing on their core values, because 1, you'll be the same as them. And 2, if you're not quite there yet, they'll rub off on you really, really quickly, because that sort of energy, that sort of passion, and that sort of appreciation for themselves is really, really contagious. Okay, so that brings us to the end of our session. So I really hope you've all found it useful and beneficial. And remember, everyone else spends most of their time focusing on themselves. So why can't you? Thank you so much for your time today. I hope that you've enjoyed it as much as I have.